For more than 15 years, Oklahoma has had Republican control of the governor's office and both chambers of the legislature. State leaders have told Oklahomans that low taxes, low costs, and a business-friendly climate would bring growth. So here is the basic test. Are Oklahoma families actually catching up? The answer is no. Oklahoma's income growth is now far behind the national average, and behind the comparison states our leaders often say we should compete with. From 2018 to 2023, Oklahoma's inflation-adjusted median household income grew only 3.2%. The United States grew twice as fast. Montana, Colorado, Georgia, and North Carolina all did better. That matters because median household income is not an abstract statistic. It is the money families use to pay for housing, groceries, utilities, childcare, healthcare, and transportation. If Oklahoma's economic strategy were working, families here would be catching up. Instead, they are falling further behind. Colorado is not beating Oklahoma because it has lower taxes. Colorado's corporate income tax rate is slightly higher than Oklahoma's, but Colorado has much higher median household income and a much more educated workforce. That is the lesson Oklahoma leaders keep ignoring. A state does not become prosperous just by being cheap for business. It becomes prosperous by building the workforce, schools, health systems, and quality of life that attract higher-value employers. Oklahoma has spent years selling itself as low-cost. But low-cost is not the same thing as high opportunity. The poverty numbers tell the same story. Oklahoma's poverty rate remains higher than the national average. That means too many working families are still living close to the edge, even in a state that claims its economic model is working. For years, Oklahoma leaders have celebrated tax cuts and business rankings. But the real report card is whether families can earn enough to live with stability and dignity. On that test, Oklahoma is not leading. It is lagging. Child poverty makes our Republican leaders' failure even clearer. Nearly 1 in 5 Oklahoma children lives in poverty. That is not just a hardship today. It shapes the future workforce they say they want to build. Children growing up in poverty are more likely to face barriers in health, school readiness, reading, graduation, and career opportunity. A state cannot underinvest in children and then act surprised when it struggles to build a high-wage economy. Oklahoma's future workforce is sitting in today's classrooms, kitchens, clinics, and child care centers. The question is whether state leaders are investing in them. Public education is one of the clearest examples. Oklahoma was once closer to the middle of the pack. Now it is at the bottom. That decline did not happen by accident. It followed years of budget choices, tax choices, and policy choices made under Republican control. When a state underfunds public education, struggles to recruit and retain qualified teachers, and fails to build a strong education pipeline, it weakens the very workforce employers need. You cannot create a high-wage economy with a low-investment education strategy. That is not a data-based economic plan. That is wishful thinking. Oklahoma's leaders say they built a business-friendly state. But the better question is whether they built a family-friendly economy. After more than 15 years of Republican control, the results are clear. Income growth trails the nation. Poverty remains too high. Child poverty remains a warning sign. Public education is near the bottom. And Oklahoma families are still waiting for the promised payoff. Oklahoma will never raise family incomes by being inexpensive for everyone except the families trying to live here. The state does not need another slogan. It needs a strategy that invests in people, because that is how you build the workforce, attract better jobs, and raise incomes for all Oklahoma families.